coming back to your startups, like what are the top 5 lessons you think that startup founders should be aware of?
Oh, tough question. But I don't know, no particular order, and I don't know that I'll hit 5. It would be openness to changing your assumptions. So a
Yeah,
lot of people, like, a lot of people come in and like they think it's all like, well, I have this great idea, I just need to execute on that idea. And it might be the idea is good, but it's just not a business. Or it might be the idea is good if you know switched from this current customer target to a different target, or if your business model were different, right?
right.
So that would be one. um, Another one would be like openness on you know the team. So I've seen, you how should I put this, but like, good friends who work together and then after a year they're no longer good friends.
Oh
So
God, yeah.
that's a common one, right?
Yeah.
So for I mean, for anybody I work with, I say, okay, before you come in the door, you must have something in writing with each other, some kind of co-founder agreement, or if you have employees, certainly you have that, employee agreement, but you have something in writing. Not that I need to, review it for you, but that I just want to know that you've had that discussion. Who is
Mhm.
responsible for what? If there's an equity split, what that is, like set up those things. And this could be on one page, right? This does not need to
Yeah,
be drafted by a lawyer. But
right.
it's so common for people to misunderstand each other, or
Yes.
after time goes by, our memories change, and then you look back and you say, like, I feel like I've worked harder than my co-founder, so I should get more, right? I think that's what I said. I think it was like I was getting most of it and they were not, So you write something down so that when that difficulty happens, or when the stress level is high, or when, who knows, like someone's situation has changed and they can't work the way they expected, you write that down so that it's not total chaos. Like the worst
Yeah.
situation would be is like, that itself leads the team to fall apart even more. Or you're in the middle
Yeah.
of raising money and now, like, the investors realize that there is actually like chaos internally, or one person quits or is fired, but it's not clear, like, do they own anything, like you have a rogue founder. So take care of that founder situation as early as you can when you're all great friends. um
Right. And then
yeah,
also like the 51-49% fight, right?
right,
Like
yeah,
who gets more?
yeah,
Like how do you advise on those things?
that's always
Because
awkward.
everybody thinks it's like 50-50, right? You know,
And
to
50-50
have
is
to
not
have.
necessarily good. You know,
Yeah.
um, so the way that you could go into it would be based on what every individual is bringing to the table. So it might mean that it's experience related. It might mean that it's commitment. If one person is, say, doing this full time and somebody else still has the day job or is in school, um, it might mean that, at, for a different company, there's different skills that are in higher demand at any given time.
Mhm.
So you know, different companies, and then beyond that, like you obviously want people to be in this for the long haul. So like different companies will say structure their vesting schedule differently. Typical might be 4 years, but some companies extend that to like 6, where they backload most of the equity grants. So like upfront, it's like a tiny, maybe it's like 5% a year. But then once you've stayed 3-4 years, okay, you really are serious. You've proved it. Now you get like the massive additions to your equity.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a lot of incentive design, right? Like design
yeah,
the incentives and so people stay on and contribute in a positive way. Okay.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Agree?
Um, you know, another okay, another one is probably, so I've seen a lot of smart, builders of things, whether that is, developer, designer, UX person. I've seen a lot of smart builders fail when it comes to just not being able to reach customers. So and I'm thinking, how do I phrase this? But like, I have seen teams that are maybe they're not doing something as as unique, or it might be kind of like a there are other versions of this, but they are just great at getting to customers, whether it's direct outreach, whether it's running a paid ad campaign, whether it's just building content that gets them inbound search. If you're running a startup, you're running a business, and the business needs customers to survive. So the ones that really figure out, okay, what is the path to the customers, they have that edge, even over, a potential competitor that might have a better product, but they just can't get it out there as much, or they don't spend the effort to try to do that. So
the marketing,
I've had a number of companies.
Yeah, so marketing sales.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's you have to be very creative, there as well. And I'd say, like, I've had a number of businesses that have, they maybe struggle in the early days, but they eventually figured out how to reach their customers. And once they do that, it's very, I don't know, everything becomes just more enjoyable. It's always more enjoyable when you have, like, more customers coming in, to try to buy, or especially if, like, to buy, like, they just have to, like, click a button and and pay. So yeah, I've had quite a few companies now at this point that they figure that out, and the rest of the business, it kind of, like, it takes care of itself. And I'd much rather have somebody in that situation than really struggling, working on something that might be, say, technologically more interesting, but they're going to have to move on and do something else because nobody's buying.
Right.
And that's very sad.
Right.
To see smart people, but nothing is coming of it.
Okay, how about the investor part? Like, any
okay, so suggestions for that. Yeah. So I certainly see, or I meet people who think, well, okay, so this is easy. Like, I just go out and I talk to some investors, and then I get an investment and I move on. This is probably a pretty long process. Or if you're starting from scratch, it's definitely a long process because you don't know anybody yet. Unfortunately, a lot of investor decisions are based on, kind of the network that you were in. Do they have experience with you in the past? Have they seen that you, like, have been developing over time? So I usually recommend that founders who think they will be raising capital in the future start to get to know investors, because not getting to know them saying, hey, I'm raising money, just to share what you're working on. And you might keep them updated maybe once a month, of what's going on. Over time, you've kind of proved that you're serious. You've proved that you can figure things out. Something difficult happens, you're able to roll with it. You're able to improve. And then after enough time, you also have that kind of that list of investors that you potentially could go to raise that first round. But it's a pretty...
So it's really about trust, right? If investors trust that you can make this happen, or pull it off, or scale the business. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.